History does not warn empires politely. It whispers first, then it screams. The British Empire did not fall because it was weak. It fell because it refused to listen, especially to Africa. What Britain called colonial management, Africa experienced as a slow economic bleed. And when the empire finally collapsed, history wrote it as inevitability. But Africa knew better. Africa saw the mistake while it was happening. Today, another empire believes it is immune. Another empire believes history does not apply to it. America. This is not a story about hate. This is a story about patterns. And Africa has seen this pattern before. The myth of eternal empires. Every empire tells itself the same lie. We are different. Britain believed its empire was more civilized, more lawful, more advanced. They said their empire was built on order, not exploitation, on stability, not theft. But history does not care what empires say. It only records what they do. At its height, the British Empire controlled nearly 1/4 of the Earth's land and population. Maps were painted red. The sun never set on British power. From London, decisions were made that affected villages in Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, South Africa, Egypt. Millions lived under rules they never agreed to. Britain looked powerful, but power hides decay very well. Africa, not a colony, but a power source. Africa was never Britain's project. Africa was Britain's engine. Gold funded banks, diamonds stabilized currency, rubber, cocoa, oil, copper. These were not resources, they were lifelines. British factories ran on African extraction. British wars were financed by African labor and wealth. This was not partnership, this was dependency. And here lies the empire's first fatal error. When an empire becomes dependent on exploitation, it loses the ability to stop. Britain could not slow down, could not retreat, could not reform without collapsing. Africa was no longer just occupied. Africa was holding the empire together. That is an unstable position for any empire. The real cost of control. Empires rarely collapse from rebellion alone. They collapse from the cost of suppressing rebellion. To control Africa, Britain required permanent military presence, surveillance networks, administrators and collaborators, brutal enforcement. Every resistance movement increased expenses. From the Ashanti resistance to the Zulu wars to the Mau Mau uprising in Kenya, Britain paid in money, soldiers, political legitimacy. Each uprising forced Britain to reveal its true face. The myth of benevolence died in Africa, and once legitimacy dies, empire becomes occupation. African resistance and the breaking point. Africa did not resist once. Africa resisted constantly. Resistance doesn't need to win militarily. It only needs to never disappear. British officials realized something terrifying. They could win battles, but never win obedience. Every generation of Africans learned resistance from the previous one, and Britain was bleeding resources to maintain an illusion of control. This is when Africa stopped being profitable. And that moment, that exact moment, marked the beginning of the end. Overextension, the empire killer. Empires die when they are everywhere at once. Britain was managing India, policing Africa, guarding trade routes, fighting world wars. World War I weakened Britain. World War II nearly destroyed it. After 1945, Britain was bankrupt in everything except pride. Africa was supposed to save the empire. Instead, Africa exposed its exhaustion. An exhausted empire cannot adapt. It can only tighten its grip. that always accelerates collapse. Legitimacy, the invisible foundation. Empires are not held together by weapons, they are held together by belief. Once Africans stopped believing in British authority, the empire had no foundation. Independence movements were not just political, they were psychological. The world was watching Britain lose control, and perception matters. Empires collapse faster once the world stops believing in their permanence. The final mistake. Britain's final mistake was not losing colonies, it was refusing to learn. They believed retreat meant humiliation. They believed dominance meant survival. So they delayed reform, delayed partnership, delayed listening. And by the time they withdrew, it was not strategy, it was surrender. The empire never recovered economically, politically, or psychologically. Africa was not the cause. Africa was the mirror. Why Africa remembers this clearly? African empires fell too, but African empires understood balance. Mali balanced trade and faith. Songhai balanced military and economy. When balance was lost, empires fell. Africa ignored balance. It chose extraction over sustainability. Africa remembers this difference, and Africa recognizes the pattern when it appears again. Transition to Part 2, Heavy Cliffhanger. The British Empire collapsed because it ignored the warning signs coming from Africa. Today, America faces the same warning, but on a global scale. In Part 2, we will examine America's overextension, the cost of global policing, Africa's changing role, and why 2026 is not random. History is not finished speaking.
Opening. The dangerous belief. Every empire reaches a moment where it believes the rules of history no longer apply. Britain reached that moment in the early 20th century. Rome reached it centuries earlier. America is approaching it now. Not because America is weak, but because power creates blindness. And blindness is more dangerous than enemies. Africa has seen this before. Why empires never think they are the same. Empires do not collapse believing they will fall. They collapse believing their system is superior, their economy is too big, their military is too strong. Britain believed its navy made it untouchable. Rome believed its legions were eternal. America believes its dollar is irreplaceable, its military dominance is permanent, its global influence is unmatched. This belief is not arrogance, it is habit, and habits kill empires quietly. America's global footprint, too big to feel, too costly to ignore. The United States maintains military and strategic presence across the world. Bases, alliances, operations, sanctions. From the Middle East to East Asia to Africa, America is everywhere. Power feels infinite when spread across maps, but cost becomes invisible when spread across budgets. Just like Britain. The British Empire did not fall in one war. It fell from maintaining too many commitments with too little return. America is facing the same arithmetic problem. The cost of being the global policeman. Being the global enforcer comes with a price. Military spending grows. Veterans return home broken. Infrastructure ages. Public trust erodes. Britain learned this lesson after World War II. America is learning it now. When citizens begin asking, why are we everywhere except fixing home? That question marks a shift. Empires collapse when the public no longer believes the empire benefits them. Africa saw this moment in Britain. Africa's changing position in the world. Africa today is not the Africa Britain ruled. African nations are diversifying partnerships, negotiating instead of accepting, rejecting one-sided control. Africa no longer needs approval from one empire. This is what Britain failed to understand. When African leaders demanded independence, Britain still spoke the language of control. America risks repeating this mistake by approaching Africa as a battleground, not a partner. Africa does not want to be chosen. Africa wants to choose. Economic strain, the quiet collapse stage. Empires rarely fall first through politics. They fall through economics. Debt increases, currency pressure grows, confidence weakens. Britain experienced this after 1945. The pound lost dominance, the economy shrank. America faces similar pressure. Rising debt, global currency challenges, reduced trust in institutions. These are not signs of collapse, they are signs of strain. Africa recognizes strain because it has lived under strained empires before. Legitimacy, the real battlefield. Britain lost Africa when it lost legitimacy. The empire could still fight, still punish, still suppress, but it could no longer convince. America faces legitimacy challenge today. Sanctions without consent, interventions without trust, narratives without credibility. When legitimacy fades, power becomes expensive. Africa understands this lesson deeply. The global South is no longer silent. Africa, Asia, and Latin America are no longer passive observers. They have options, they have leverage, they have memory. Britain believed colonies had no alternative. America risks believing the same about influence. But influence today is negotiated, not enforced. Empires that fail to adapt do not collapse suddenly, they hollow out. Africa's final lesson to empires. Africa has buried many empires, not with armies, but with patience. The lesson Africa teaches is simple. Empires survive when they listen. They fall when they dominate. Britain chose dominance. Too late, it chose retreat. America still has a choice. History has already written one version of this story. The question is not whether history repeats. The question is whether anyone listens. Heavy, silent power. Africa did not celebrate when the British Empire fell. Africa understood something deeper. When one empire falls, another believes it is immune. Africa watches quietly now, because it has seen this ending before. And history never needs permission to repeat itself.